Hello, everyone, and welcome to Google Cloud Next 2024. We are grateful to be here with you today speaking about one of our favorite topics of all time, AppSheet. That's Google's no-code app development platform. We have an exciting talk for you here today covering a range of topics, including citizen development and how AppSheet no-code applications and AI integrations can catalyze innovation in your business. We're also going to be speaking today about governance and how AppSheet provides tools and capabilities for administrators to effectively monitor and understand and govern applications inside their business as it evolves. I'm Mike Procopio, a senior staff software engineer here at Google. And I'm especially lucky to be joined here by my friend and colleague, Anne.
Hi, I'm Anne, and I'm one of the product managers on the AppSheet team. And as Mike said, we're here to talk to you today about citizen development and how AppSheet and AI can help. Now, it's a little early. You might be just getting awake and didn't hear what Mike said, and you're wondering, what is AppSheet? Well, AppSheet is Google's no-code app building platform. No-code solutions let people, non-technical folks, create solutions for themselves without any code. So users can connect to existing spreadsheets or create a new data source. And from there, with a visual editor, clicks and configurations, they can build out pages like list views and table views. They can also add automations with bots that allow them to automate their own workflows. AppSheet can make people more productive by supporting a variety of use cases, from inventory management to vacation requests or employee training and onboarding. AppSheet also connects to Google Workspace and Google Cloud Services, so you can build intelligent apps. And if you didn't know, AppSheet core licenses are included in most Workspace plans, so you can put AppSheet in the hands of anyone, because citizen development is here. Now, we've all been probably a little tired of hearing, do more with less. And you've all probably been working on digital transformation projects. Well, citizen development can be one of them. But what is it really? And why should you care? You might hear citizen development, decentralizing development, or democratizing development. It all just means that your business, knowledge, and frontline workers are solving their own challenges by building solutions for themselves. When you give people the chance to solve their own challenges, you can have big impact to your business. Like Akron, you can make magic happen because you're using the power of all of your people. With AppSheet, you're no longer dependent on software engineers to write code. That doesn't mean that people have to learn to code themselves. You just have to build the right culture and give them the right tools, like Globe did. Now, no-code platforms can turn technical people into developers by taking their ideas and turning them into working solutions. Now, Gartner noted that tools like AppSheet can shift development outside of IT. So can you imagine how much more productive and innovative your organization can be when anyone can build solutions, and you're no longer dependent on a small, centralized team of developers? That's why there's real momentum around citizen development. Forrester noted that 80% of organizations are taking some kind of action towards implementing no-code platforms. But half of them are just getting started. So now, how many of you have been doing citizen development for over a year? Less than a year? So you're not alone if your citizen development strategy is not a full-blown program yet. That's because there can be some real concerns around letting everyone build applications. I mean, just the idea of that probably gets your heart racing, palpitating just a little bit. Well, you're not alone there either, because there are some common themes. There's security. Non-technical people don't always understand security controls. They might not even understand the risks associated with sharing data. You want to protect your assets and make sure that they're not sharing sensitive data. There's also overall governance. Sprawl can be a problem. You want to know what's getting created, who's creating them, who's using them, what are they being used for, especially the ones that become mission critical. And then there's user adoption. If you're going to drive culture change and implement a no-code platform, you want to make sure people are using it. You want to get that return on your investment. So you need to build awareness and motivation. So how do you foster a culture of citizen development and do it in a way that is secure and governed? Well, there are some key steps. You can think of this as a kind of blueprint for taking your strategy and putting it into action. We're going to dig into each of these, and Mike's going to kick us off. Mike?
Thank you for that, Anne. Okay, well, Anne spoke about our three-part plan, which begins with defining the governance strategy. Now, as a software engineer myself, I typically prefer just to start writing code, skipping any kind of design sorts of stages. It's a problem I've been working on it all my career. But seriously, it is very sensible to start with the design and think about, before we implement a no-code solution like AppSheet in our organization, how we're going to govern it. Let's see what that looks like. There's this natural tension between a fully democratized environment where anybody inside your organization is free and empowered to build applications. We refer to this as fully centralized citizen development. Now, this is a continuum, and if you think about it on the other side, you may imagine a larger organization with a very centralized and rigid department that controls all application development inside the business, and sometimes associated with longer development cycles and maintenance concerns and so on. AppSheet's whole ethos is to thoughtfully walk this line in a hybrid model, and customers can adopt AppSheet in different ways all along this continuum. But what we found is that a hybrid model with lightweight governance while fully enabling people to build applications inside the organization can be very effective. Airbus is one such organization that has seen a lot of success with this. And I'll go ahead and call out Airbus's customer success with AppSheet session today at 12:30 along with Globe, and I hope to see some of you all there. Airbus says that putting the right governance in place was the first lesson that we learned. At Airbus, everybody has access to AppSheet, but they can't simply just deploy apps like that. There's a review process and lightweight governance in place. But in general, at Airbus, the people inside the organization are empowered to build applications, and the governance is fairly lightweight. Here are three parts that you can do to get initial traction on setting up governance in your organizations. The first is to define teams and roles. We're basically talking about people here, and it's a thoughtful way to think about how you might approach this problem. So this is, of course, what comes to mind is who is going to be administering the applications and monitoring them and coming up with policies and these sorts of things. But it's also things like who can build applications in the org and who can use these no-code applications in the org. And it's appropriate, and we intend to give administrators tools to be malleable enough to adapt to whatever the org structure is in your business. Now, the outcome of that team structure and the decisions that they make is going to generally be a sense of what kind of governance we want in place. These we refer to as policies, and we'll see a demonstration of this here shortly. But policies can apply globally or at the team level, things like controlling who can use applications, what sorts of auth providers are permitted, whether external data sharing is permitted, what sorts of data sources can be used, and so on. And then finally, an important part of the governance strategy is setting up monitoring. So as things get going inside the organization and adoption of these no-code applications increases, we'll want to be able to understand how they're being used in the org, who's building these applications, and how much adoption and traction there generally is. Let's take a look at AppSheet policies. This is the cornerstone of our governance capabilities here at AppSheet. Here we see a screenshot of our policy editor. This lets you explore and apply policies to different applications and teams and organizations. In this example, we have a policy that we've set up here, and at a glance, we can see which applications which exist now inside the org are compliant, and if they're not compliant, what sorts of actions we can take from there, including the application owner. We'll see a deeper demo of this here in a moment, but AppSheet policies are one of the most important ways that AppSheet can help administrators govern and effectively manage apps in the org. One thing that we're very happy to announce, now this is launched and available today, is org-wide policies. So we heard from customers that while it is powerful to be able to set policies in place at the individual team and account level, it's also sensible to have a default set of policies that apply to the organization as a whole. And from there, have have additional specific policies that can be put into place that match individual team dynamics as appropriate for the business. So these are org policies. They're available today. You can, if you don't have an AppSheet organization yet, you can reach out to your sales representative to get one of those, and we will set it up for you. Okay, so that's the governance strategy, and then I'm going to hand it back to Ann, who's going to talk about the AppSheet from a creator experience, as well as some of the new things that we are excited to announce here today.
Great. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
So at this stage in your program development, you want to focus on culture and setting your users up for success. And there are lots of ways to drive adoption. Lixil started with executives in a top-down approach. This empowered their folks because they saw that their executives were taking time out of their day to build solutions. It let them take time out as well. It also inspired them because they could see some of the things that were getting built, and it gave them some ideas as well. And they were thinking, you know, if it's easy enough for my executives to figure out, I can probably do it too. Now, Lixil's got some great stories about the apps that their organization built, so you can check out their blog. Driving user adoption means taking some deliberate steps. You have to build some awareness around the opportunity and the benefits. Now, Lixil started with a small team, and you can do the same, and then broadcast those success stories. Or you can share the success stories of some of our other customers, like Lixil, or Globe and Airbus. As Mike mentioned, there's a customer success stories session, say that 20 times fast, later today at 12:30. You also need to motivate them. So again, Lixil started with their executives, but you could hold hackathons or competitions, give out rewards for most time savings or most creative idea. Events like hackathons let your users get some access to the tools, some hands-on experience. It can also get their innovation juices going, especially if you let them build apps that don't have anything to do with work. All along the way, you want to show them that you're supporting them with training. We've got a trove of training materials and a learning path for AppSheet developers, so you can check those out and build out a training program that works for you. Now, after a while, your power users are going to start to stand out, and these are your best advocates. Build a center of excellence around them, or give them special status like AppSheet Master, and they'll become champions for your cause. Now, the hackathons and the trainings, those are things that you can do to teach people about the tools and how to use them. Now, folks at Veolia really liked how AppSheet had a kind of spreadsheet-like feel, and a lot of the tools and capabilities that made it easy to get started. So let's take a look at some of those and what you can highlight to your users. So we saw before that AppSheet has a visual editor, and creators can start by connecting to a spreadsheet, like this facilities request list. And creators can preview and use that app right away. That's because we automatically create the views that we think they need, like the forms, detail cards, and list views. We even create some common actions, like create, edit, and delete. And from there, they can continue to build out their app and add automations and additional functionality. Sorry about that. So let's go back. We're going to talk about data, because at the heart of every application is data. Now, we saw connecting to a Google Sheet, and that sheet is owned by Gwen, who's a facilities manager, and she manages a bunch of office buildings and campuses. So with that sheet, she was able to build out an AppSheet app, but AppSheet also has other connector types. So let's say that Gwen's company uses Salesforce. She can use one of the connector types that AppSheet has to access that data in her Salesforce system, and then build out her workflows from there. There are also other connector types, like Airtable and Smartsheet. She's able to use existing data from her enterprise systems so she can rely on the official sources of truth. And soon, we'll be introducing integration connectors for AppSheet. This will give AppSheet creators access to the hundreds of connector types available through the Integration Connectors platform. So your AppSheet creators will be able to use data from even more enterprise systems, like Jira and BigQuery, and some of the new ones that were just recently announced, like Trello, Teradata, Google Classroom, and YouTube Analytics. So you can give your creators access in a way that's governed. So your data stewards can configure connections, and then your AppSheet creators can then use those connections to add that data to their apps. And with connectivity to Vertex AI, your creators can even use your own models. So let's say Gwen's company is biotech. Her data scientists might have built out large language models that use industry-specific terms or corporate acronyms. Gwen is able to use integration connectors to add AI to her app and use models that are tuned to her industry and trained on her own company data. So data might be the first thing that you do and kind of connect. But the data need to be easy to use and understand. So maybe Gwen doesn't want to deal with all the pages and modules that are part of Salesforce, or she doesn't want her team fumbling with her spreadsheet and changing the wrong rows or the wrong columns. With AppSheet, she can build nice views with just the data that they need. She can choose from a variety of layouts, like a form for submitting new requests, a calendar so her team can see when things are due, or a list view so she can get an overview of her backlog. From there, she can add those bots. She can create automations that send her a notification and one to her team whenever a new request or issue gets submitted. This way, nothing falls through the cracks. Now, at Gwen's company, not everyone works at a desk. Her own team is often out in the fields. What's nice is that with AppSheet, all the pages come with responsive, mobile-friendly views. Apps can even be deployed as branded apps that can be deployed from the Google Play, Apple App Store, or your own MDM solution. So let's say Paolo, who works at Gwen's company, is getting his coffee in the morning, and he sees a big spill in the kitchen. He doesn't have to remember that and submit a request when he goes back to his desk. He can just pull out his phone and submit that from right there. So as you can see, there's a lot that you can show your team about what AppSheet can do. But sometimes the hardest part is getting started when you're staring at a blank piece of paper. This can be especially true for non-technical folks when they have to learn something new. You have to show your folks how easy it is to get started. And we've got you there with AI-assisted app creation. This will allow your creators to not have to start from a data schema. They can just describe a business process or app idea, and we take care of that for them. So let's take a cookie break. And I'm sorry, I don't have any actual cookies on me, but imagine that I make and I sell them. I need to keep track of my customers and my orders. I can just put that in as a description, and I get back a suggested list of tables and columns. If it all looks good to me, AppSheet will go ahead and build that out, complete with those tables, columns, pre-built views, and actions. I went from idea to app in about 2 clicks. So we released AI-assisted app creation last year. We announced it at Next as a Google Chat app, back when it was known as Duet in AppSheet. This year, starting later this month, we'll be releasing an in-product version, so you can use it from right inside the AppSheet editor. Now, here we've been talking about using Gemini to help creators get started quickly. But our AI story doesn't end there. We'll be introducing a way for creators to add AI to their own apps. So let's go back to Gwen and talk about that. So Gwen's got a lot of campuses that she manages, and she's got these waste management bins. Sometimes they get damaged or overflow. She needs to keep track of these issues so that she can request new bins or prepare for additional billing or request early pickups. She creates an app for her team to fill out a form and submit these requests when they see something wrong. But she also knows that it's difficult for her team to fill out a form on a mobile phone because they're often wearing heavy gloves. And I think we all kind of would if we're dealing with trash. So she hears about this extract capability, and she thinks, gosh, if my team can just take a picture and fill out a form, that would be amazing. So let's take a look. She's already built out most of her app. So now what she can do, she can add the extract method to her app and then specify the information she wants to get out of that photo. So now when her team sees something wrong, they can just take a picture, upload it to the app, and then Gemini will analyze that photo and take the information out of it, attempting to fill out the form. So here we can see that these are recycling bins. There are 2 of them. They're in good condition, but they're overflowing. Gemini did all of that, just from a photo. So I think you probably want to try it out for yourself. A private preview of Extract with Gemini will be available starting in Q2. But it's just the first of AI capabilities that we'll be adding over time. You can use this QR code to sign up to request to join that preview. You can also visit us in the showcase booth and see a bit more of a demo. We've shown you how we help creators build apps and get started. But ultimately, it's about the people who use the apps, making it easier for them to do their work. Next, Mike's going to show us how integration with Workspace helps us meet app users where they are. Mike?
Thank you, Anne. Well, we've just seen some remarks from Anne on the app creator experience. And as Anne mentioned, one of our passions is to meet the user where they're at from an app user experience. The reason why is if you can save your users time and keep them in context with the task that they're doing, then they're going to be more effective. In AppSheet, we understand that we are a platform to allow people to build apps that ultimately are helping people do a task or a job, and that is our passion. Towards that end, we do strive to meet the user where they're at. This includes a variety of Workspace properties available today. We'll do a quick survey of that, and we have some announcements in this space. Gmail, Docs, Chat, AppScript, and announcing today, and that we'll see a demo of here shortly, Google Forms. Let's do a quick survey of this just as a refresher. A few years ago, we launched AppSheet integration in Gmail using a feature called Dynamic Email, sometimes called AMP for email. This is built into Gmail, and it essentially lets us see live data-bound views directly inside Gmail, where when the email opens up, the email renders with live data. Importantly, this data is editable directly inside the email, so it's a full read-write scenario. And the user can stay in context in the email to understand the data, to edit it, or to take an action on it. For example, an approval flow. In this case, the animation shows that there's an approval, and this data gets persisted back to the underlying data source, all while the user stays in context in Gmail. A similar analogy we now have and have launched recently, earlier this year, in Google Docs, where AppSheet, using the link preview capability, can embed live views directly inside Docs. The views anchor inside the doc and scroll with it, and we also handle all appropriate authorization and authentication. That's available here today, and coming soon, we have the ability to create new form data directly in the Google Doc as well. One thing that we're especially excited about from our launches last year was full support for AppSheet embedded views inside Google Chat. Now, this harnesses the power of chat apps and all of the additional capabilities built into Google Chat, including / commands, so that the user, when they're in Gmail or Chat or wherever chat appears, including on their mobile device, can stay directly in context when they receive a notification. In this case, the notifications are rich and applicable with up-to-date data and actionable. The user can take action directly in there, including, again, an approval workflow or editing data live in the moment with where they're at. Now, creating chat apps can require some configuration inside GCP, but AppSheet also allows users to deploy any chat app with just a few clicks in less than 5 minutes. So we also handle the deployment of your existing or a new AppSheet app directly as a Google Chat app using that feature in the app editor. An important part of the extensibility of the AppSheet no-code development platform is full AppScript integration, including the ability to call low-code script functions and pass parameters that are functions of expressions built into AppSheet. This is really important because we live in an era where things are changing quickly, new capabilities are being deployed. We've had a lot of announcements at Cloud Next already, and often they come with APIs out of the box. So third-party developers can leverage the capability of that particular service. With AppScript integration, the moment something becomes available, for example, a new generative AI capability that has an accompanying API, you can immediately take advantage of that simply using this AppScript integration and query that AI service with parameters from your data and receive responses back. These can be multi-step workflows, and we'll see this here in a moment. One thing that we're very excited to announce today and coming to a public preview in a few weeks is full integration with Google Forms. There's two primary aspects of this integration, and I'll be demonstrating this here shortly. The first is full support for Google Forms as a data source in an AppSheet app. That means in just a few moments, you can create an AppSheet app directly from a Google form and immediately have access to all of the underlying form responses in the form. The second key part of the Google Forms integration is what we call a trigger. And what that means is using AppSheet automation existing today, we can listen for a Google Form submission by a user who, importantly, does not necessarily need to be an AppSheet user or doesn't even need to have any idea that their form data is going to trigger a multi-step workflow process. This is another example of meeting the user where they're at. So when they submit that form, AppSheet, using its existing automation, can listen for the submission and then take a range of actions from that. Okay, so we have a live demo of this today. So this should be, we can go ahead and switch to my demo laptop, if that's okay. And we should, once we do, we can see the AppSheet home page. We call this the My Apps page, and it lists the recent apps that have been created with AppSheet. Okay, so we're going to demonstrate two things here today. The first, we're going to see how easy it is to create an AppSheet app based on Google Forms data. It's simply create an app, start with existing data, make a new app, and coming soon, in a few weeks, we will see this option here, Google Forms, which will be released as beta. You select Google Form, and then we can immediately choose the Google Form that we have access to. In this case, it's a shortcut that appears in My Drive as the app creator here. And in a few moments, we will have created an AppSheet app from this Google Form. And then we see the live warm welcome here telling us what we can do with our app that Anne also had previewed moments ago. And we can see right out of the box, this was 30 seconds, right out of the box, we have a fully functioning app with default views. And Anne showed this working in a scenario for Google Sheets. It now works with Google Forms. We can see that there's some form data here today, right out of the box. I can look at here. I see that Mark has submitted some form responses for some testing. That's a very good sign here for our demo. So that shows us how easy it is to create an app directly from a Google form. Now, for the rest of the demo, we're going to switch over to an existing app that we have pre-configured with a chat app integration, and that will allow us to very easily see a multi-step workflow that I'll demonstrate here. So that is called the Travel Approval app. We'll simply open that. Again, it's pre-existing. We have a chat app configured here. We're also listening for a Google Forms form submission. The key thing to highlight here is that we have set up here an automation. It's a multi-step automation, and it's going to listen for the Google form, just kind of telling you the scenario that we're demonstrating here today. We're going to receive a notification, the automation goes on to say, that upon a form response being submitted, a user will be notified, and in this case, it's going to be a travel request, and we will want to approve or deny that travel request. And then finally, there's a third step here that upon approval, we're going to send a confirmation email by a dynamic email to the original requester. Okay, so with that said, we can go ahead and see this live here. We have a split screen demo here where if I come here into the second account here. Now, this requires a little bit of audience participation. I mean, it is Las Vegas after all. So on the right-hand side, we have the person who is going to be requesting the travel, and Anne is going to come up to the stage and help proxy that. But can I just get somebody, here in the audience, just get a first name for somebody who, I don't know, might want to travel to Las Vegas? First name, anybody? Elvis. Yes, okay. Ladies and gentlemen, Elvis is coming to Vegas. Okay, so what we can do, and just include the record there. So Elvis is going to travel to Vegas, maybe make that 1,000 there. 10,000 seems a little bit, and I worry that we're gonna get this automatically denied. So Elvis is gonna submit a travel request to travel to Las Vegas. And the way this automation is configured is that I'm a person on the left-hand side of the screen who's going to receive a chat notification upon submission. Okay, so it seems like we submitted that, and just right over here in the chats, we can see that the AppSheet automation has received the notification, sent to me, or more specifically, this chat space, a travel request. Now, it's not just a static piece of information. It is a live view with live data that gives me all of the information that I, as the person who's approving this travel, needs to understand for whether I'm going to approve this. However, there's something extra we have in the demo here today. Earlier, we spoke about our AppScript integration. And this lets us take advantage of new capabilities the moment they're released with an API. So in this demo, I'm not sure whether I should request Elvis's or approve Elvis's Las Vegas trip. So I'm going to say, help me decide. What this is going to do is this is going to call a service, and it could be really any service. In this case, it's an AI service that's going to take the prompt and evaluate it and do inference and let us know what the result is. So this button in this demonstration is hooked up to an external AppScript call, which is going to send the data over, and then we'll get a response directly in the chat for what the answer is. Aha. Well, it timed out, but then my favorite thing about a timeout is sometimes the answer still comes back anyway. So we have an error message, but also the response. In this case, we said approve, and with the rationale that it's a reasonable cost per day. Okay, so the AI says we're going to approve this thing. What do you all think? Should we approve Elvis's trip to Las Vegas? All right, okay. Okay, here we go. We're going to click approve. Thank you, Anne, for your assistance earlier in that. We're going to click approve directly with where I'm at, keeping the user in context, come back to our email, and then this is from Elvis's perspective. Aha, we have an email here with the result. Your travel to Las Vegas is approved. Congratulations, Elvis, you're going to Vegas. All right, woohoo, so that covers that demo. If we can switch back to the presentation, please. We have a few more things to touch on and one more live demo here today.
Hello, everyone. Today I'll be showing.
That's our backup video, which is really good that we had that. Thank you, Mark, for that voiceover. The third part of our three-point plan here today, once we've defined our governance strategy and empowered people to build applications in the organization, is to monitor and manage these applications as they evolve in the org. And importantly, this may mean evolving business requirements in the organization. There are three aspects to this that AppSheet provides to support ongoing oversight: the monitoring of users, apps, and their creators, the ability from an administrator perspective to manage requests and respond to growth, and importantly, being able to refine the governance plan that we put in place as the business evolves, but also in certain businesses, there's regulations. This is the dynamic business environment that we're in today, and it is very important that with policies, we have an easy way to quickly put into place governance strategies as they change over time. Towards that end, we are very excited to be announcing today our enhanced admin console, which is coming to preview in Q2. This is something that we're very passionate about because we care greatly about empowering the administrator to understand how apps are being used in their organization. This new admin console represents a significant investment in this space from the AppSheet team. So if we can go ahead and return now to our demonstration demo laptop here. I will begin this journey at a site that many people in this room may be familiar with, namely the Google Workspace Admin Console. Now, AppSheet appears here as an app under Google Workspace, and it's also pinned here to the top. And if we click into that, we can see there are fairly coarse-grained controls from an administrator point of view, specifically the ability to toggle the entire service on or off. But we want some additional detail. We want to be able to control and understand things with a finer-grained perspective. So we have a direct link to the AppSheet admin console. Now, I'm just in the moment here realizing that this looks incredible. This looks like mocks. But this is actually the live development code base that we're previewing here today, and again, that we're excited to bring to preview here this quarter. This is our overview page, and this is what you can think of as your homepage if your role includes administering AppSheet inside your organization. From a high level, we can understand how many people are using AppSheet, how many apps we have, how many app creators, how many policies are in effect. We can get an at-a-glance view of the overall usage over time of AppSheet inside the org. We can understand our most popular apps. We can get a sense for who our most prolific app creators are. And then finally, we can understand how licenses are being used across the different license types inside the organization. So let's dive in here. So as an administrator, I would come to this page and get this at-a-glance view. And I see right off the bat that there are a number of apps here. This issue tracker one is new to me, but it's also clearly our most popular app. We just can click right into it and at a glance get an app detail view about this specific app, including its usage over time. We can understand who the users of this app are, and importantly, we can see that this app was created by Sean and the types of licenses required by the users using Sean's app. We also have a variety of other actions that we can perform here, including opening the app directly in the editor, seeing additional statistics about the app, making a copy, or even transferring ownership of the app. So clearly, Sean has created our most popular app inside the org. It's probably helpful to understand a little bit more about how Sean uses AppSheet inside the org, inside our business. So we can now click into user detail view about Sean, and we can see that indeed, Sean has written a number of apps with a significant amount of usage. And from here, we can understand the types of licenses required for the apps he's built. We can transfer ownership of Sean's apps and so on. But this sort of gets me thinking about who else is using apps inside the org, who's creating, what does the overall adoption of AppSheet look like in the organization from a user-centric view? This brings us to our users view, which is a key part of the admin console that we're previewing here today. We can see the usage count over time. We can get a list of users and understand who they are. We can make role assignments and adjust permissions directly from here. We can see a high-level list of all of the apps in the organization. We can understand how licenses are and what entitlements we have. And if we need to procure additional licenses, we will be able to do that. And then finally, I'll conclude this demonstration with an actual live look at what we call our policy preview engine. Again, this lets us apply policies to specific teams or recently introduced to your organization as a whole. Let's take a specific look at this. Let's say, for example, we wanted to create a new default policy that was applicable to your entire AppSheet organization. Now, we have an existing set of apps, and they may not all be compliant with the policy that we want to put into place. In this case, we're going to use an existing policy template that is going to restrict the authentication provider. In this case, we could restrict authentication to be just Google, and we can see a quick understanding of which applications are compliant with the proposed policy. Again, we're just exploring at this point, and which applications would be non-compliant were this policy to be put into effect. And we can see here there are two applications, Celebrity Update and our external vendor resources, that wouldn't be compliant, but we want to put this policy in place. And so from here, we would reach out to these folks and understand what their applications are for and give them a heads up that we want to enforce this policy, but we also don't want to break their apps. So this is an important part of our ability to preview policies and enforce them directly from our new admin console. Coming to preview later this quarter, and we are thrilled to have been making investments here in the space that empower the AppSheet administrator. So that concludes this demo portion, the second demo here. Thank you for the teams for both of these demos and all of their hard work that they've been spending behind the scenes landing this here for us today. We can return to the presentation. We are here. It just looks. We may have the video, which I can skip. That's the backup video. Very happy that we didn't need that. OK. And now I will hand it back to Anne, who's going to give us a recap and take us home with some closing remarks.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
It's nice to see that new admin console.
Yeah.
So I don't know about you, I'm like ready for my second cup of coffee this morning, so let's recap and wrap things up. So citizen development and AppSheet are how you can empower your organization to solve their own challenges and digitize your workforce. But there are some reasonable concerns with democratizing development. And there are ways that you can do this without things turning into the wild, wild west. You need to think about your governance strategy, figure out how you want your program to work, and then use AppSheet to put those policies into practice. You also want to drive your user adoption by giving them tools like AppSheet and showing them how to use them. And then you want to keep your program running by monitoring usage so you can grow your program responsibly. So Mike and I are going to be excited to see what you all build with AppSheet. We've got some new features. This is a summary of the features that we announced today. As we mentioned, some of these are going to be available in preview, so you can use this QR code to request to join. You can also visit us in the Showcase booth and the Innovators Hive. Speaking of which, check us out in some of our other sessions, the one that we mentioned later today, and then one tomorrow morning at 8:30. So you get an extra half an hour of sleep. Please, please, please leave us some feedback. We really appreciate you being here. I'm Ann Ho.
And I'm Mike Procopio. It has been our pleasure to be here with you today. That concludes our talk. We'll stick around a little bit for questions, but until then, thank you very much for your attention here today.